With your purchase of the Bafx Products IR repeater kit, you're going to receive a small box similar to this. Inside the box, you will find one user manual specific to this repeater kit. You will find one distribution block, one IR receiver cable. More are available for purchase. And you will find 4 dual emitter cables. So 4 cables, each has 2 heads, allowing you to control up to 8 devices. So 2, 3, and 4 of those. And of course, one US power wall adapter. So now you want to know, how do I set up my IR repeater kit? Obviously you need to plug your distribution block into power. As mentioned before, you can either do that using the supplied 12 volt power adapter, or you can use a USB printer cable and then plug that printer cable into a powered USB port. Either way to power the block is fine. It just matters what type of power source is easily accessible where you're going to locate the distribution block. The next thing you need to do is plug in your IR receiver into one of the 3 IR receiver ports down here at the bottom. And you'll place your IR receiver, it needs to be within the line of sight of your remote control at all times. If you place the IR receiver facing down like this, and you're pointing the remote control from out here, that's probably not going to work very well. You need to always have the face of the IR receiver facing your remote control. It doesn't matter if you have it turned like this or like this, as long as the front of the IR receiver always faces the source of the remote control. So once you've located the IR receiver where you want to point your remote control, the next thing you need to do is take one of your emitter cables with the 2 little heads like this, and you need to plug it into one of the IR emitter ports on the back of the distribution block. If you have the triple zone repeater kit, you'll need to make sure that you plug your emitter into the corresponding zone that you have the receiver plugged into. If you have the single zone repeater kit, it doesn't matter which receiver port you plug the receiver into and which port you plug the emitter cable into. So once you have the IR receiver plugged in and the emitter cable plugged in, then you're ready to hook up your repeater kit to your device. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to take one of the little emitter heads on the emitter cable, and you're going to locate the IR receiver on your device here and place the emitter head over that IR receiver. Once you've done that, you can then point your remote control at the IR receiver, and it will control your cable box from wherever you place the IR receiver. In the previous segment, we went over the basic setup of the repeater kit. One of the things I mentioned is that your emitter head needs to be placed over the location of the IR receiver on your cable box, DVD player, or whatever. Most devices, you're going to see a black face like this, and it's not going to be directly apparent where the IR receiver is on that device, and you're not going to know right away where to place the emitter. There are a couple different ways to figure out where to place the emitter on your device. The first, and usually the quickest way to do this, is to use a flashlight and shine a flashlight through the front of the device and look for the IR receiver. The IR receiver is normally a small dome, half dome, connected to some kind of circuitry. And to find that, the best way, you can't, if you just shine the flashlight like this, it's not going to work. But if you hold the flashlight flat up against the front panel of the device and slowly move your flashlight along, and you peer in the side here, you can usually see what's behind the front panel of the device. And when you spot that half dome on this device, it is right about there. That's usually where you're going to want to place the emitter on that device to get it working. So the IR receiver's here. Usually with most devices there is a little bit of play with the area where you can place the emitter. So if I place it here, it'll probably still work. If I place it over here, it'll probably still work. But if I go and place it over here, it's not going to work. These emitters are not very powerful, so the emitters usually need to be placed pretty much directly over the IR receiver on the device. In some cases, the emitter can actually overpower the IR receiver in the device. And when you find that happens, if you move the emitter a little bit off to the side, then it will usually start working. Now the other way that works well to find the proper emitter placement on your device is the trial and error method. In this method, you'll want to have somebody holding the IR receiver for you. You don't want to peel the back off of the receiver and stick it to something just yet, because it's going to stay there. It's very sticky. So if you have somebody hold this receiver far away from the device, and you have that person sit and press a button on the remote control, then if you take the emitter and just slowly move it around the face of the device as the other person is pressing a button on the remote control, you'll eventually find the spot where the emitter should be placed. Oh, there it is. So if I place it here, it'll work, or pretty much anywhere in that area. If I go too far, can't place it over here. So the trial and error method works good. The one thing you need to be careful with about the trial and error method is if you have your receiver sitting here and you're pressing the button here with the remote control here and you're moving it around, the device is still getting a signal from your remote control. So that's not going to help tell you where the receiver is on the device. You need to make sure that your remote control isn't sending any signals to the cable box while you're moving your emitter around. Otherwise it's just not going to work. So you need to have the IR receiver way off to the side and somebody over here pressing a button on it while you're moving the emitter around. This can be done with one person. It's a little more tricky, but it can be done if you take the remote and the receiver and hold it in your hand facing the opposite direction of the cable box, kind of like that, and press a button. See, even right now the cable box is still getting a signal from the remote. So you need to make sure that when you're doing the trial and error method, that the receiver is nice and far away from the cable box. If you've been playing with trying to find the emitter placement on your cable box or DVD player, whatever, and you haven't been able to find the IR receiver location on the device using the flashlight method or using the trial and error method, drop us a line at info@bafxpro.com. We have tested literally hundreds and hundreds of devices. We know where the emitter needs to be placed on a lot of devices to get it working. It could be that you have a particularly sensitive device that just needs a very particular emitter placement on it, or it's possible you got a faulty kit and we'll help you get that replaced. There are obviously thousands of devices that we haven't tested, but we've tested quite a few, a lot of the most common ones, and if you send us a message, we'll be more than happy to help you get it figured out, up and running. There's very few devices that we can't get this working with. Right now we're going to go over the meaning of the different lights associated with your IR repeater kit. These lights are pretty much the same for both the triple zone and the single zone repeater kit. You have two power lights here and an IR status light. First, obviously, is your power adapter. When you plug the power adapter into the wall, you should have a green LED illuminated on the power adapter to show that it's working. On some power adapters it might be red. It's usually green. If that light is not on when you plug the power adapter into the wall, then something is wrong with your power adapter, possibly your wall outlet. When you plug the power adapter into the distribution block, into the 12 volt DC port, you'll see the power light go on there. You can also plug the distribution block into 5 volt DC power using a USB printer cable and power it from a USB port or a USB wall adapter if you so choose. If you do that, this red light will come on and this one will be off. You don't want to power the distribution block using both. One or the other is good. The next light is your IR status light here, and this light will blink blue when you press a button on your remote control, and that just indicates that the distribution block is receiving the IR signal from your IR receiver properly. You may also see this IR status light blink blue when you plug in the IR receiver cable. It's real quick. I don't know if you can see it there. Yep. And it blinks blue a little bit. If that IR status light is on all of the time, that usually means that you don't have your IR receiver plugged in all of the way, or it means that something is wrong with your IR receiver cable possibly, or if that light is always blue, it could also mean that your IR receiver is receiving interference from somewhere. In our case here in our office, we have a lot of fluorescent lights in the office, and if I move the IR receiver around, you'll see that light blink quite a bit. That's because fluorescent lights give off stray IR signals. As long as it's not on when the IR receiver is sitting still, you should be fine, but if the IR receiver is sitting still and that blue light is on and you're not pressing a button on your remote control, then something's probably wrong. The last light you need to be concerned about is the light on your IR receiver. Now, I don't know if you can see it there, but there is, when the IR receiver is properly powered on and plugged into the distribution block, this light at the top here should be a very, very dim green color. It's hard to see. It's a lot easier to see in the dark. I don't know if I cover it up there if you can see it better. But then, when you press a button on your remote control, you'll see that green LED flash red to indicate that your IR receiver is getting the signal from the remote control. So that's what the lights on your repeater kit mean. If you're having any issues with the lights on the kit, they're not behaving their way they're supposed to, drop us a line and we'll help you get it figured out. So you're setting up your IR repeater kit and you realize that the IR receiver cable isn't long enough to stretch from the distribution block to the room where you're using the repeater kit. This cable is only about 5 feet in length from tip to tip, or about 4 foot 10 inches from the base of the receiver to the base of the plug. So that's not very long. You can extend the length of the IR receiver cable. The easiest and the best way to extend your IR receiver cable that we like to recommend is to use a headphone extension cable. What you're going to want to look for is a headphone extension cable that is stereo, meaning that it has these two black bands around the plug, the male plug, and you'll want to make sure that it has male-female ends. And we recommend that you get one that's shielded. It's not required that it be shielded, but just to prevent any interference, it's best to get one that's shielded. We do sell our own headphone extension cables that can be used for this. We sell them in 10 foot, 25 foot, 50 foot, and 100 foot length. All of the cables that we sell are tested with our repeater kits before they get sent out. They can be found on our website at bafxpro.com. We also sell them on Amazon, Newegg.com, Rakuten, eBay, as well as some other locations. Our brand of headphone extension cables is not required. Any headphone extension cable that has 3.5 millimeter male-female plugs and is a stereo cable will work to extend your IR receiver. That said, the exact same cable can also be used to extend your emitter cables. You'll notice that the emitter cables are a mono cable. They only have one black band around them. However, you can still use a stereo cable to extend this. You don't need to buy a mono cable. Mono cables are a little harder to find, and a lot of times they tend to be a little more expensive. You can use a stereo headphone extension to extend your emitter cables as well. We receive a lot of questions asking if people can somehow run their IR receiver through the existing Cat 5 lines in their home. A lot of newer homes have these Cat 5 systems in them, and a lot of times people don't use them, and so they want to run their IR repeater kit through the Cat 5 jacks in their house, so they don't have to pull wires through the walls. This absolutely can be done. It is absolutely possible. A lot of times people want to cut the IR receiver cable, splice it into Cat 5, plug it into the wall, and do it that way. That can be done. It does work. However, doing the splicing can be quite tricky. If you don't do the connections just right, the IR signal won't pass through those connections properly and the kit won't work. It can be done, but an easier solution that we have is our Cat 5 adapter kits. Our Cat 5 adapter kits come with two about approximately 3 feet Cat 5 cables, as well as two Cat 5 to 3.5 millimeter plug adapters, as well as a male-to-male adapter. And what this kit allows you to do is plug your IR receiver into the Cat 5 jack in your home without cutting any wires. Basically what you would do is you'd plug your IR receiver into the male-to-male adapter. You plug the male 3.5 millimeter to Cat 5 adapter cable into the male-to-male adapter, and then you plug a Cat 5 cable into the male-to-male adapter and plug it into your Cat 5 jack in the room where you want the IR receiver. Then in the room where you have your distribution block, you plug a Cat 5 cable into that jack, plug that Cat 5 cable into the Cat 5 to 3.5 millimeter adapter, and plug that into your IR receiver in port on your distribution block. That allows you to plug your IR receiver into the Cat 5 jack in one room, into your distribution block using Cat 5 cable and Cat 5 jacks without cutting any wires. If you want to extend your IR receiver or emitters using Cat 5 cable, we highly recommend using our Cat 5 adapter kit. If you don't want to buy the Cat 5 adapter kit, that is absolutely a-okay. You can splice the IR receiver into Cat 5 cables It is absolutely 100% possible. It's just a little tricky. There's some instructions in the manual about how to do this properly. And if you have any questions about how to splice your IR receiver or emitters into Cat5 cable properly, drop us a line at info@bafxpro.com and we will be more than happy to offer you some tips and tricks. The very first thing that you're going to want to check when you can't get your repeater kit to work with your cable box or what have you, the very first thing, as silly as it sounds, are the batteries in your remote control. Now you say, wait a minute, my remote control works just fine with my cable box without the repeater kit. It can't be the batteries. Well, actually, surprisingly, it can be. The repeater kit needs to have a very strong, good signal. If the batteries in your remote are just starting to die, that signal may be a little bit on the weak side for the repeater kit to be able to handle that signal properly. As the batteries in your remote die, the signal deteriorates, and that can cause problems when it passes through the distribution block. So the very first thing, as silly as it sounds, put fresh batteries in your remote control. That can a lot of times resolve issues, even if your remote control is currently working with the box just fine. So you've got your repeater kit all hooked up to your cable box. Everything's looks like it's set up as it should be, but your cable box just isn't responding to the repeater kit and you can't figure out why. The most common problem we see is a device receiving double IR signals. What a double IR signal is if you have your cable box hooked up to the repeater kit and the cable box is on an open shelf and it's still within the line of sight of your remote control, and you press a button on your remote and have the remote pointed at the IR receiver, your cable box is going to be getting an IR signal both from the repeater kit through the emitter, and it'll also be getting a signal from your remote control because the box is within the line of sight of the remote control. So when this happens, your cable box is actually getting two IR signals. And when a box gets more than one IR signal at a time, it can become confused, so to say, and just not respond at all because it doesn't know what to do. It's getting so many IR signals. So the first thing you need to check when you can't get your repeater kit to work with your device is make sure that your device is completely hidden from view of your remote control. You're going to want to make sure that your device is in a cabinet with closed doors on it, or in another room, in a closet, something like that. If you can't hide the cable box from the line of sight of your remote control, but you need it hooked up to the repeater kit because it's sort of obscured from the remote control. One way you can resolve this problem is to take a piece of electrical tape, or a couple pieces of electrical tape, and place it across the front of your device to cover the device and block the device from the IR signals of the remote control. So your emitter would be hiding behind the electrical tape. So that's the most common issue that we see with the repeater kits and why they won't work. Another issue with the double signals is the Harmony branded universal remote controls. I don't have one offhand here, I forgot to grab it, but the Harmony branded universal remotes, they're a great remote control. They do work with the repeater kit. The problem with them comes that they are extremely, extremely powerful. So even if with a Harmony branded remote control, if you have your cabinet behind closed doors, your cable box behind closed doors in a cabinet, but that cabinet's still within the line of sight of your remote control, the Harmony signal is so strong that it can actually still sometimes get to your cable box. So that's another thing you want to check if you're using a Harmony branded remote control. Another issue that we see people have with the repeater kits sometimes is if they're using two IR receivers with our single zone repeater kit. If you have two IR receivers plugged into two different receiver ports on your distribution block, and those two receivers are located in different rooms, there shouldn't be any issue. However, if you have connected two IR receivers to your distribution block so that you can control your devices from different locations in the same room, it's kind of another variation of the double IR signal problem that you can have. So if your two IR receivers are in the same room and they're too close together, and you point your remote at one of them and they both receive the signal from the remote control, you're essentially sending a double signal to your cable box. So if you have two IR receivers connected to the same repeater kit in one room, you need to ensure that only one IR receiver gets a signal from the remote control at a time. When you have two IR receivers in the same room together, we normally recommend that they are a minimum of 20 feet apart from each other. Sometimes 20 feet is not enough depending how you're pointing the remote control at each receiver. So if you are having problems getting your device to work with the repeater kit and you have two IR receivers in the same room, you're going to want to make sure that they are far enough apart from each other and that only one is getting a signal from the remote control at a time. To test and see if that might be the issue, one thing you can do is have somebody completely obscure one of the IR receivers from the remote control and then try to control the device using the other one. If it still does not work, then you may have something wrong with the distribution block or possibly the IR receiver cables. But if it works when you obscure one of the IR receivers, then you likely have these too close together. One word of warning about headphone extension cables is there are a lot of extremely cheap ones out on the market, and a common issue we see with those is that they tend to be cheaply made as well. So if you get everything hooked up and your repeater kit isn't working, we recommend disconnecting the extension cable if you have one in place. Plug the IR receiver directly into the repeater kit block and see if it works then. If it works without the extension in place and it's a stereo cable, then you probably have a faulty cable. These faulty cables can pass sound just fine a lot of times, but IR signals can be very sensitive to any deficiencies in these very cheap cables. The headphone extension cables that you find at places like Best Buy tend to be of very good quality, so you shouldn't have any problem with those. Our cables are not the cheapest on the market, but they are pretty darn cheap, and we guarantee them for life. So, like I said, any headphone extension cable will work to extend the length of your IR receiver or emitters, but we do sell our own. Again, along the lines of the double IR signals to one device, another issue we see is a lot of times people may only have one device in their cabinet they're trying to control with the repeater kit, but the emitter cables you have two emitter heads. So when you connect your one device to the emitter cable, you have a stray emitter head just kind of dangling out nowhere like that. This can sometimes cause a problem because the emitter heads actually will send IR signals out of the back of the emitters, out of the eye of the emitter there. So if you have a stray emitter head in the vicinity of your devices, one thing you're going to want to make sure that you do is make sure that that extra emitter head is hidden off somewhere to the side. You can do this by simply pulling the emitter heads apart. Each emitter head is on its own cable, and if you can pull them apart like that, doing that will not damage the cable in any way. The only thing we don't recommend doing is cutting the emitter head off. If you actually cut the emitter head off, that will cause the entire cable to stop working. So if you have a stray emitter head just kind of dangling around in the cabinet with your devices, make sure you pull it apart, separate it from the other emitter head, and tuck it away somewhere so that it's not also sending a signal to your device aside from the one connected to the device. Another thing people try to do to get their devices to work is they'll sometimes place two emitter heads on one device. You only need one emitter head per device. Placing two emitter heads on a device is not going to help get the device working. It's probably actually going to make the problem worse. So placing two emitter heads on a device doesn't work, and if you have a stray emitter head in your cabinet with your devices, make sure it's tucked off to the side. Another problem that can occur is interference from your TV. This generally only occurs with plasma TVs. So if you have a plasma TV, this is something you're going to want to pay attention to. This is not a plasma TV. We're going to pretend it's a plasma TV. This is actually LED. But plasma TVs actually emit stray IR signals from their screens. And our IR receivers will pick up just about any IR signal. They are designed to filter out some very weak IR signals, but depending how close you have the receiver to your plasma TV, some of those stray signals from the plasma TV can still get into the IR receiver. So if you have a plasma TV and you place your IR receiver right at the bottom of the TV here, there's a very good chance that your IR receiver is going to be picking up stray signals. And those stray signals can interfere with your repeater kit working properly. So if you have a plasma TV and you have your IR receiver somewhere very close to that plasma TV and you're having problems with your repeater kit, the very first thing to check is to see if you have your IR receiver too close to the TV. Easy way to check this is to turn off the plasma TV, leave your cable box on or whatever, and try to control that device through the repeater kit with the plasma TV off. If it works with the plasma TV turned off, but doesn't work with the plasma TV turned on, then you have your IR receiver too close to the plasma TV. That said, we do on very rare occasions see this issue with LCD TVs. It is not common at all with LCD TVs. Generally, LCD TVs may send out some stray IR signals out of the back of the TV. And if you have a very large LCD TV and the IR receiver is very, very, very close to the back, it can sometimes cause interference. So again, if you have an LCD TV, it is still something that you may want to check. It's generally not the cause, but it is worth checking out. But again, plasma TVs do often cause this issue. Generally, you can resolve the issue simply by moving your IR receiver off to the side of the TV, or placing it on a shelf below the TV, or something like that. Another trick, it's not as nice, it's a little crude, but it does work a lot of the times, is if you place a piece of semi-transparent Scotch tape over the face of the IR receiver. That can help filter out some of the stray IR signals from your plasma TV. So again, plasma TVs, check to make sure that you don't have your IR receiver too close to the TV. Hopefully I've answered all of your questions. If you still have questions, something I missed, which I'm sure I did, please drop us a line. If you're still having problems getting your device to work with the kit, drop us a line. That's what we're here for. We stand behind our products 100%, and we're here to help get you up and running as quickly as humanly possible. If you received a faulty kit, we'll replace it for you. 100% guaranteed, no cost to you. That's what we're here for. We want our customers to be happy, and I hope that we've done that for you.